Hello everyone, Eldon Yoder here with aphotoedit.com. It's time for a photo edit show number 8, season number 1. I think I said that backwards, but anyway, it's the 8th episode of the first season of a photo edit. Today we are going to look at some things around shooting RAW versus shooting JPEG, and we'll look at some JPEGs and RAWs side by side and see why you may want to shoot one way or the other. But before we do that, I just want to mention a couple things. First of all, head over to aphotoedit.com. On the home page, you can watch a quick video about what a photo edit is all about. Head over to the presets page, and you can get a glimpse of a couple or a number of the different Lightroom developed presets that you can get by signing up for the newsletter here below. The newsletter comes out once a week and is basically just a reminder of shows that you may have missed here on aphotoedit.com. Also, head over here to the show page and you can check out all of the older shows, and there's 40 that I did previously under a core presets show branding, but they're very similar to how I've been doing a photo edit as well. Let's see, other than that, feel free to check out a photo edit on Google Plus as well as on YouTube. If you want to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, that'd be great. If not, it's fine too. And on Google Plus, I'm trying to share some stuff there, some stuff that would be interesting to you just photographically, and so feel free to check that out as well. I also want to mention that you can feel free to check out the following photographer. This is someone who I have been following for a number of years. He actually used to work for Kelby Media, I believe it is, and he just recently accepted a job at On One Software as vice president of something. Matt Klaskowski it is, and feel free to check out his work at matk.com. And his portfolio is also pretty nice. He's a landscape shooter mostly, and yeah, he just does some really nice work, and he does a lot of good training stuff as well with On One Software now, and he has done a whole bunch with Kelby Media as well. So feel free to check out his work. Links to all of this will be in the description of the video on YouTube, as well as over on the photo edit website with the post that goes along with this show. So feel free to check out Matt Klaskowski and see some of his really nice work. And now I don't want to stop looking at his pictures. So anyway, I'll let you do that in your own time. Let me pin these tabs so don't forget to link to them. And let's jump over into Lightroom. I was recently helping someone choose a camera, and we ended up settling on a Sony a5000, which is, I believe, I think it was the first Sony little NEX system camera that took on the new alpha branding. It's about a 20 megapixel camera, I think. Anyway, at the end of the day, I'll link to the camera in the description on YouTube as well as over on the blog at a photo edit. The person that I was helping look at this camera wondered if I would shoot it for a couple days and just give them some of my general thoughts about it and maybe some ideas for how they would go about getting good pictures out of it. So basically what you see here is I took it into town and walked around some, and yeah, these are the resulting images, and all of them were shot in the JPEG plus RAW setting. So there are two versions of each shot. The first one is a DNG, and then the second one is a JPEG. So if you look at the name here, as I hover over it, it's 01 January and then .dng, and this one's the same thing except with .jpeg on the back of it. So we're going to basically go through these and look at them, and we'll look at the raw, edit the raw file, and then apply the exact same settings to the JPEG and just see how it reacts basically. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see what else. I also shot this all using Sony's intelligent auto setting, I believe. So basically you stick it in intelligent auto and allow the camera to make all the decisions for you, and it'll look at the scene and say, okay, is this a landscape? This is how you may want to shoot it. Is this a portrait? This is maybe how you want to shoot it. Or it'll adjust the settings according to whatever kind of scene is before the camera. So I found it actually to be pretty good. One thing that I wasn't quite sure about was that it chooses its own ISO as well, and I wasn't totally cracked about that, but it seemed to do okay. Another thing I'll mention, the kit lens that comes with the camera is a 16-50, and as you see right up here, it's a f3.5 to 5.6 optically stabilized something. Basically it has optical image stabilization in the lens, and it does a pretty good job. I'm not a huge fan of the lens myself, but I could be, it worked. It was okay. I actually, on my current NEX, or actually it's a A6000, I have a kit lens, but I decided not to get the kit lens that this A5000 came with, which is a 16-50. Instead I got I think it's an 18-55 kit lens, but it doesn't have a zoom motor. It's not quite set up the same. I just like that kind of lens better, so that's why I chose that one. And yeah. Let's see here. So let me cut the information off, and let's go ahead and jump into these. First of all, let's just look at these and discuss. Actually, I'll leave the information on so you can see which is the JPEG and which is the RAW file, or the DNG file. So if you notice right out of camera, the JPEG is doing a number of things. First of all, there's, it's brightening the image and making some semi-permanent decisions for us, like about detail and such. It's also applying lens correction within the camera, which I actually found to be really nice. If you're going to be shooting JPEGs, it's really cool if the JPEG already has lens corrections applied to it. So if we jump back over here to this image, you can see that it obviously doesn't have the same lens correction applied to it. So let's go ahead and jump to the develop module and see if we can fix that first and foremost. So I'm going to just close this left hand side, and we're going to come over here in the lens correction panel, and I'm just going to simply enable profile corrections. And you see that picked out which lens it was and applied what it thought was the correct settings to it. So let me go back and forth again. So here is the JPEG and here is the DNG, and you see they're looking a lot more similar as far as how the lens affects the image, or the distortion does. So DNG, JPEG, DNG, JPEG. Alright, so let's go ahead and edit this DNG file and see if we can get it to look like we want it to. So I'm going to pull in one of my presets here, and let's see here. Let's go ahead and actually just create our own look. So I'm going to pull the highlights down, and let me just show you this first of all. So let's pull the highlights all the way down. You see we're getting clouds back in up here, more detail back in the highlights. Let's go over to the next one, which is the JPEG, and let's do the exact same thing. Let's pull the highlights down, and if you notice, there is much less detail up here in the clouds. So let me go back and forth, and you see that there's a lot more detail up here in the DNG file. The reason for that is because it's a DNG file, and the DNG file will basically save, or the raw file will save more detail in the highlights and the shadows, which means that you can push it farther in editing. However, if you are not really into editing, you might not want to necessarily shoot raw files. So basically that's kind of what why a lot of people shoot raw versus JPEG, and it's why I do. It's because I can, in post-processing inside of Lightroom here, I can push the file a little farther, make it do and look how I want it to. So I'm going to add a little bit of clarity, a little bit of vibrance, touch of saturation, and let's get down here to the tone curve. And I'm actually just going to apply one of my presets here. This is one of my favorite ones. It's called Subtle Tendencies, and it does a nice little number right down in the shadows. So that's before, and this is after. Just something I like to apply right off the bat. We don't need to work with the HSL. I think we will do a little bit of a split tone here, and we'll just give it a little bit of a warmth in the highlights and a little bit of a cool feeling. Let's go over here and see what this looks like. Maybe something like that in the shadows. And we'll go something like that. Alright, so let's come on down here to detail, and we're going to leave noise reduction alone, but I'm going to go ahead and sharpen this some. And you can see here in the preview as we're sharpening, so this is normal sharpening, and then let's sharpen it just a tad more. And I'm going to crank the masking up here, so I'm going to hold down the Alt key, so where the image is white we are applying this sharpening, where it's black we are applying no sharpening. So I'm going to go somewhere about to there, and we'll say that's about right. So let's do a full image side by side. Let me cut my... Alright, so let me go to the next one, and let me go back. So this is the raw file, and this is the JPEG right here. Alright, so that's not quite fair because we didn't edit the JPEG either. So let's go here to the settings for the raw file, and we are going to actually, let me bump the shadows a little bit farther, and let's give it a little bit of contrast. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and copy these settings. I'm going to just check all of them and hit copy, and we'll go to the next image, which is the JPEG, and we're going to paste the same settings in. So the look should be pretty similar overall. I'll go back one and forward one. And you see that they're looking very, very similar. Actually, if I jump back to the develop module, I'm going to try to make them look as close to the same as possible. So I'm going to brighten up the raw file just a little bit. Whoops. Maybe something like that. And let's go to the next image. So now the DNG is a little bit, or the raw file is a little bit brighter. So we're going to go to 0.1. So we're ending up with a very similar image, but at the end of the day, the difference here is, well, there's a number of differences. Let's do one more thing. So I'm going to right click on this image, and I'm going to choose show and explore. So this is going to show me where the actual file is, and this is 00293. So let me come down here a little bit. 00293. Okay, so we have the DNG file, and then we have the JPEG image. So if you look at the size, when I hover over this image, it's 4.6 megabytes. When I hover over the RAW file, or click on it, you can see right down here it's 17.4 megabytes. So this one is a lot larger because it is basically uncompressed. Most of the information is in the file, and that means that we can push it a lot farther, as I was saying, in post, but it also means that it's taking up about 3 times, or no, wait, so about 3 times. About 3 times the size on our hard drive. So JPEGs are a lot smaller, but you can't push them as far. That's basically what I'm trying to say through all of this. And JPEGs may allow you to not have to do as much editing to get a nice looking image. RAW files tend to look a little flat. Basically, if you're shooting in RAW, you're just saying, I want to control everything from the camera. I want to have all the information and then make my own editing decisions once I get back to the computer. So yeah, that's basically that. So we're not going to talk too much more about JPEG versus RAW, but we will continue on through these and see what we can do. So once again, I'm going to go to this one, and here is the JPEG version of it. So let's go back here, and I'm going to go ahead and actually I'm going to just paste the same settings in from the last image and see what we can do. Alright, so let's go to the next one, and we're going to paste the same settings in here. Come on. And if we go back here, we can see again that this one is just not quite as bright. So apparently the JPEG version of the Sony files is a touch brighter than the original DNGs. So that's interesting to me. So let's go full screen here once my computer wakes up. And see if we can tell which is which. Loading, loading, loading. Oops, went one too far. So this is the original. Wait, no, this is the JPEG file actually. And this is the RAW file. So they're very similar. In some ways, you could argue that the JPEG looks a little better. Some of the detail is a little more clear in here. So let me go back to the develop module, and we're going to just go ahead and make the DNG file a little bit more detail-esque, maybe is the word. So let's see, what can we do to do that? Set a white point, so hold down the Alt key, slide to the right, and we're getting a little bit of white point up in the upper left hand corner and a little bit of a black point. So holding down the Alt key again, sliding to the left, and then I realized that I'm never going to get a black point because of the tone curve that I'm using. Oh, come on. Okay, so the tone curve I'm using is basically saying that we will have no blacks, so I need to be a little more careful as I slide this down. Maybe I'll bump the clarity a little more. Alright, so now we have a DNG and the JPEG. And now the DNG looks like it is a little more over-processed maybe than the JPEG. So while we're here, let me do one more thing. Pull down the highlights again up here, and I'll hold down the Shift key to keep that nice and straight. And we'll go about there. And let's add a little bit of clarity. Something like that. Alright, so let's go ahead and close this. So let me see here what I can get out of the sky of the JPEG. So see, the JPEG already has some of the detail in the sky there. It's just the way it was processed from the camera processing. So a lot of this stuff is looking very similar whether I'm editing the JPEG or the RAW. And in some cases, I almost like what the JPEG is doing better than I like what the RAW is doing. So that's interesting. I wasn't actually expecting to say that, but here I am saying it. So I guess I'll have to decide if I want to shoot JPEGs or RAWs going forward. Now I know I want to keep shooting RAW files because I really like editing photos and I like to be able to push them as far as I can. And shooting RAW allows me to basically have more detail in my shots to work with. Not that there isn't as much detail in the JPEG files, it's just that you can't push them as far. So yeah. Alright, let's go ahead here, bump the shadows up a bit, set a white point, holding down the Alt key, sliding to the right. We'll say that's a white point there. And let's slide our black point down a little more. Again, give it a little more clarity. And from past experience, let's bump this up just a touch. And see what that looks like. Alright, so let's paste our same settings here. And that's looking pretty similar. That's really fascinating to me. So if you look right up here at these bricks, I'll zoom in so you can see them. And then we go to the JPEG. You can see that the bricks are, well, they're just a little better defined in some ways. So if I go back over here, and if we come down to our detail settings, and if we go ahead and pull our masking back down, bump our sharpening back up some more, and then go back to the JPEG and to the DNG. So I think the JPEG is obviously sharpening the image, probably selectively, but definitely a little more in these brick areas than I was originally doing with my DNG file. Alright, let's go to the next one here. And this is one that should be interesting. Again, we're going to see what we can get out of the sky is going to be probably the main difference we're going to notice here. So if I'll go and pull the highlights down, and if we go to the next image and we paste those same settings in and pull the highlights down. Alright, so that's just really fascinating. There's actually a lot more detail in the JPEG file than I thought it was going to be. Now, it was an overcast day, so maybe there's something to be said for that. Alright, so I'm going to pull the shadows up a little bit, and we'll go on here. Now, I think you could argue that I shouldn't be applying the same settings to the JPEGs because, well, basically I'm doing the exact same thing to both images, and the JPEGs already have a little bit of stuff applied to them. But regardless, the JPEGs are really impressing me compared to the RAW files. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I think at the end of the day, you're going to just have to decide whether you want to shoot JPEGs or whether you want to shoot RAW files. And the answer may be different for you depending on a number of things. And maybe we'll get at some point to one of these images and I'll say, see, that's why you shoot RAW files. But so far, I really have been quite impressed with the JPEG files. Now, I still do think that you can technically push a RAW file a lot farther than a JPEG. So let's do this on the next one, I guess. Or maybe not this one, actually. Let me wait till I can get one that I can show you here. Alright, I'm just gonna paste these same settings in here. And this is where I bought one of my first digital cameras. Not one of my first, I guess it was actually a couple cameras in. I bought a Canon 7D, and this was where I paid more for it than I should have probably, but that camera treated me really well. Let's see here. I think the next set of images is going to be the one I want to work with. Alright, so nope, not this one either. It's the next one, I believe. So let me just paste these settings in here. Alright, here we go. Alright, so let's just do a little experiment here, and I'm gonna get rid of the no, I won't. I'll keep that there. Alright, so let me go ahead and paste these settings. So paste it here and then paste it here as well. And let's go back here to the DNG file. Now here's where I think you're going to find that you can get more out of a RAW file for sure than out of a JPEG file. And actually, let me go to the development or the Lightroom catalog. What is this place called? The library module. Goodness. It's late at night and I'm not at the top of my game, I guess. Alright, so I'm going to select both of these images and I am going to put them here side by side. And let's just start bumping the exposure up. And we'll go up a third of a stop at a time. Or maybe it's actually, yep, see, look at that. That's funny. It is doing both. Let me, yeah, alright. So I'm going to do one stop, 2 stops, 3 stops. Is that all we can go? Alright, so if we jump back to the develop module, you'll see that, that's interesting. Alright, so is it having a hard time? There we go. Come back 1. And once again, I'm super amazed at how well the JPEG is holding up. So this is the RAW file, and this is the JPEG file. So there's definitely some more information maybe back in these shadow areas with the RAW file. So it's able to open those shadows up a little more cleanly. But there is much more information in this JPEG file than I thought there was going to be. So that's, wow, maybe I should just quit shooting RAW files. Alright, so let's go the other way. So let me just right click on these and we'll choose develop settings. And I'll say paste settings. That should take it back to the original look. And let's go the other way. So let's go negative exposure, 1 stop. Come on. There we go. And let's go negative exposure, another stop. And here maybe you can see it fairly easily. So it's retaining these highlights a lot better as the RAW file is coming down in exposure. The JPEG still has it, but it looks much nicer and warmer over here on the DNG file than it does on the JPEG. So I'm finding this to be very fascinating. I'm quite honestly, I'm really amazed at how much pushing around a JPEG file is taking. So maybe I should relook at how much I shoot JPEG versus how much I shoot RAW. But anyhow, alright, so I think we have abused these pictures to about their usable amount, and you're probably getting sick and tired of me talking about how amazed I am at how well the JPEG is taking all of this editing. So should I stop or should I keep going? Let's edit these next couple images. So again, this is a RAW file. Here is the JPEG version of the same file. So let's go ahead and paste our settings in here. Oops, let me jump to the develop module by hitting the D key. And we will pull in the sidebar and choose paste. And we'll bump the exposure a bit, give it a bit more contrast, and set a white point, holding down the Alt key. And then we'll pull the blacks down just a little bit. And maybe give it a little more clarity, not that much. And something like that. I think I would probably actually crop this one if it was up to me, and I guess it is up to me, so here we go. And I'll just paste these same settings here. And paste these settings here. Actually, I think when I took this one, I was thinking to myself, this would make a good black and white. So let me see, I think the next one, let me get this one set up. Alright, let's reset this one. And I am going to, well, first of all, let me go over here and twirl these little guys up. And I'm going to go over here and basically just get a pretty flat image with as much detail as I can. So we'll go something like that. And I'm not going to set a white point yet. And we'll leave pretty much everything else alone. I'm going to right click here and choose Edit In. And we're going to use something called Perfect Black and White. At least if it opens up correctly, we will. Alright, so this is Perfect Black and White, and there's a lot of different black and white programs out there. Lightroom actually does a really good job. Perfect Black and White is an interesting one. One that I actually have really been enjoying using. So let me come over here to Effects and see if I have any favorites here. Almost Black and White. Bogart Warm. How about Over a Barrel? Nah. I used to shoot some film black and white, and I have always kind of been partial to some of the film looks. So let's go with this 400 Kodak. And let's see if we can make some things a little more interesting over here. Make the detail off a little bit. This is what I like about black and white, is looking through the different filters. So no filter, green, and down through. I think I'm actually liking this infrared look pretty good. So I think we'll go ahead and apply this. and eventually it will get everything saved, and we should end up back inside of Lightroom, I think. The cool thing about the Perfect Photo Suite is that it works on a PSD file of your image. So it'll save it as an edit.psd. So it's actually a Photoshop document, and you can go in Photoshop and edit that, and the layers will be there for you. So yeah, that's looking pretty nice. But we can't be back at the beginning already. Let's see. So when it re-imported, it stuck it at the top, which is kind of dumb, but whatever. Let's see, I was going to do one more thing here. Let me show you another black and white program really quickly, and maybe sometime I should do a deep dive into both of these. This is Perfect Black and that's what I just used. Cancel. Edit in, and we'll edit this in Silver Effects Pro 2. For a long time, this was kind of the de facto black and white software out there. It's by Nik Software, and they were acquired by Google a couple of years ago. And unfortunately, a lot of the talent, the developer talent behind Nik Software has sort of been shifted over to working on some Google Plus stuff. At least that's how it seems. There have been very few updates from Nik Software since they were acquired by Google. I think that's too bad. But yeah, I don't know what to say about Nik and Google, so I'll just not say anything, I guess. So let's look in the presets here and see if we can find something interesting. High contrast harsh, high contrast smooth, high contrast, high structure smooth. I always really like going down through the presets here just because, well, I don't generally think that presets are recipes, so I don't generally think that you can just hit a preset and be done with it, but it does make you think. So it allows you to look at your image in a lot of different ways and kind of come up with what the image should be to you, I guess. I think we're going to go with high. Not high contrast, high structure. High structure smooth. And we'll go ahead and hit save here. So yeah, kind of let's go ahead and start wrapping this show up. So JPEG versus RAW. I'm really intrigued by how well these JPEGs are holding up. I do still think there's more information, obviously, in the RAW files, but I'm really impressed with how the Sony JPEG engine is basically editing the RAW file to create the JPEG. So I doubt that I'll be switching over to JPEGs anytime soon, but they hold up a lot better than I thought they would. Excuse me, my goodness, that is rude. So I guess I'm just kind of at a loss for words here, because I really did not expect the JPEGs to hold up as well as they did. Now, this is one test, and there's obviously more things to test. There's the thing of different kind of settings. So it was a cloudy day when I took all of these pictures, so maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe the JPEG is doing better because it's just able to, you know, the cloudy skies basically is a big softbox, so things are a lot more closely, a lot closer in exposure. I don't know. This is maybe something that I'll have to revisit later on once I have some more time to think it through. Yeah, but don't hesitate to shoot in JPEG, I guess, if you like the way it looks. If it's pretty close to where you want your photo to be, don't hesitate to do that. Let's see here. Let me edit one more photo here, and then we will call it good enough. I'm going to hit the G key to go back to my grid, library grid module thingy majigger, and maybe we'll edit this one. I probably should have asked these guys for permission to take their picture, but I didn't. Let me go ahead and crop this, and this is the raw file. Go ahead and accept that crop, and we will enable profile corrections, remove chromatic aberrations, and we'll push the shadows up a little bit, bump the exposure up a little bit, pull the highlights down, set a white balance, but what will we set it on? Something like that. Go a little more green. Set a white point, so I'm going to hold down the Alt key and slide to the right. And I'm going to set a black point, slide to the left. And again, we are going to come over here to my fades, which you can get when you sign up for the email newsletter. Did I mention you can sign up for the email newsletter at aphotoedit.com? Okay. Starting to talk weird, so it's definitely time to wrap this up. So let's leave the highlights down a little bit, bump the contrast a bit, and maybe go up just a little more here on the, whoops, on the overall exposure, and give it a little bit of clarity, a little bit of vibrance. And let's come on down here to the detail. And not the detail, let's go to lens correction. No, we want detail, sorry. Alright, so I'm going to reset this little thing. I'm going to set it right over here on his head so that my little preview here can show me the important part of the image. So I'm going to go ahead and give it some noise reduction. I'm going to pull the color up. Let me see if I can show you what that color is doing. So if we go over here, in the shadowed part side of here, and if we pull the color up, we should see some of that go better. Yep, there we go. Maybe I'll come back a little bit. So there we go. And come on, computer. Alright, so finally let's do a little bit of sharpening. So I'm going to sharpen this up pretty good. And we will mask this. I'm going to hold down the Alt key. White reveals the sharpening, black conceals. So we'll go about there. And everything that was white in this mask, so we're holding down the Alt key. Everything that is white is getting the sharpening. Everything that is dark is not getting the sharpening. And I think that's just about it. Maybe I would actually probably clean these two little goobers up over here. but since my computer is really complaining right now, I'm not. So I would get rid of this and get rid of this wall stuff here, and maybe clean a couple of other things up as well. But that's all we have time for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed this show, and hopefully it was helpful to you somehow. Yeah, I'm not overly scientific in how I approach a lot of things photographically, so don't hate on my RAW versus JPEG comparison, because I know there's other things to consider than just how it works with a quick edit in Lightroom. But I definitely want to keep shooting some of those JPEGs and RAW type shots and just see how I can pull them side by side, see how far I can push them. Alright guys, so that's it for a photo edit season 1 episode 8. Again, head over to aphotoedit.com, check out past shows, sign up for the email newsletter, follow me on Google Plus, and on YouTube you can subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss anything. And that's pretty much it. Till next time, take care, have fun taking pictures, and don't forget to edit them. We'll see ya.